Never entirely sure about the lines of the Z1. Will it ever be a true classic? Unlike a lot of these cars here in Birmingham at Cresswell Cars. Now, Mike Ford knows more than most about the bottom end of the classic car market. How did he get started?
It was an interest originally. I worked for mainstream motor dealers in the area from the age of 17. I got to the point in the late 80s where I was just basically worn out with it and wanted to escape.
I mean, you're not at the top end of the market, not being rude, but you're not at the top end of the classic market. What's the philosophy behind it?
I like the average working man to be able to afford something different and something he's going to enjoy. And I feel that really they can come on here and if they've got £2,000 in their pocket, they can go away with something that's going to be interesting to them, and it's going to bring back some nostalgia to them. Often it's where their first employer had that car when they started work, or their grandfather had that car, or their father did. And it's amazing how the classic market also has moved on. And even cars from the early 80s now are of interest to younger people, because that's what Dad had when they first remember him having a car. So it's an ever-moving business. The other movement you obviously get is in different models. Suddenly you'll get an uprise in price on a certain vehicle. You'll also have pits where certain vehicles just die a death, like P6 Rovers 2-3 years ago. I could not sell them at all, at any price. The last 6-7 months I found that all of a sudden there's an interest in them again.
The 3500S people want.
Well, to be fair, no, the smaller engine ones I think are perhaps in some ways stronger than the bigger engine ones, because people do think economy-wise a little bit these days. Even with a classic car where they're not going to do a terrific mileage in it, if you've got something that a Sunday afternoon run is going to cost you £50 or £60 worth of fuel, people think twice about doing it. If you've got something that you can go out and spend £20 worth of fuel in, it's more likely that they'll buy it and run it.
I mean, when you look round this yard, I mean, what's your favourite sort of car?
I can't say I've got a favourite.
The one that makes the most money for you?
I suppose yes, yes, to be perfectly honest, you're right, yes, it would be. But in terms of driving, I get a kick out of all sorts. I mean, I enjoy driving little things like a Trabant. They're just a lot of laughs, terribly crude. In other ways, they're actually terribly practical. And I'm actually quite a practically minded person. I like practical things.
So cardboard bodywork was a very good idea?
Well, it doesn't rust. They don't rust.
And what about big cars? I mean, you've got some big cars here, you know, big old Zodiacs and Daimlers. I mean, what about big old cars? Big old cars,
they've got a place of their own. They're very enjoyable to drive and to use. They tend to motivate people into thoughts of the 50s and 60s, particularly things like Zodiacs. There's a big following for things like that, for the new age teddy boys, as I call them. You get them in and they go to the 50s and 60s dances, and they thoroughly enjoy the whole feeling of that era. Car-wise in particular, nothing really frightens me. I think there's a market for everything somewhere, and it's just finding the man for the vehicle. And I suppose in some senses, that's exactly what I do. I'll put my money into things and be willing to sit on it if necessary, and just wait for the man who actually desires that vehicle. And I can save him a lot of looking round, because the chances are he will find something very obscure and something that he happens to want here.
Of course, the saddest moment in your relationship with any classic car is that dreadful time when you have to say goodbye. Eamon O'Neill reports.